I want to preface this explanation just by saying that the algebra solution to this is actually really simple and really the best way to do it. And so I will show you that at the end. But I know that for a lot of people, the algebra solution is just out of reach. It's very difficult, it's hard to think about, and you just really don't know what to do when you look at this. And you still can get this right, especially because this is the calculator section. We have the ability to plug things in, no matter how messy they are, into our calculator and see what happens. So this is a great example of when arithmetize is going to be the right strategy, right? We have x's, but we are never told that we need to solve for x because it's just a placeholder carrying through the question. So let's make up a number and see what happens. And in this case, I'll go to my old reliable favorite. What happens when x is equal to 0? So in that case, the top would be 0 squared minus 6, which is just negative 6. And on the bottom, 0 minus radical 6 is just going to be radical 6, but negative. So the two negatives will cancel out. And then you're like, well, what do I do with 6 divided by root 6? Well, we have a calculator. Let's plug it in, right? So 6 divided by the square root of 6 is some messy number, 2.449, okay? With some extra decimals, but I'm going to cut it off there. Because now when I plug in 0 to some of these answer choices, I should hopefully get 1 that is equal to 2.449. Now, it's hopefully obvious which one it's going to be. We look at A and B, and 0 in for x here would be negative 2. 0 plus 2 is positive 2, so those two are gone. And then it's 0 minus radical 6 or 0 plus radical 6. Even without doing the decimals, I can see that this one's going to be negative, so that's not going to work. But if you're unsure, plug the square root of 6 into your calculator. I already know what's going to happen. But when you do, you're going to get 2.449, the same number we got before, proving that choice D is correct. And it is the only one that comes close. It is the only one that gives us the number we were looking for. So why did this work? Well, because x could be any number. Well, any number except the square root of 6. So if we pick literally any number, this exact same thing should happen. We picked 0 because it was a lazy number, and it works out. And so without really even understanding why, you are able to get a very difficult algebra question correct just by using arithmetic instead of algebra. So this is a must-get question for everybody because either you know the algebra solution and you do it quickly that way, or you persevere using the strategic solution, using arithmetize, and you get the points despite your lack of knowledge. So what should we have known? Well, we should have recognized that x squared minus 6 is what's known as a dots factoring situation, difference of two squares, dots. So what happens is normally we have something like x squared minus 9, which would become x plus 3 and x minus 3 when we factor it. We basically take the square root of both components, and one's a plus and one's a minus. Now, we do that with things like 9 because it's really easy because the square root of 9 is a nice number, but it doesn't have to be a nice number. We can do it with x squared minus 6 as well, and in that case, we would take the square root of the x squared, which is x, and the square root of 6 is radical 6. And so x plus root 6 over times x minus root 6, and if that's all over x minus root 6, then as a unit, those two x minus root 6's are going to cancel out, leaving us just with x plus root 6, which is what we had. If that does not make sense to you, don't worry about it. Rewatch this video again, but not for the algebra. Rewatch it for the arithmetize. The strategy is a foolproof way to get this. If you know the algebra, great, but you can also be a little careless sometimes with algebra, so the strategy lets us get it no matter what.